Hawkissimo, and what I wanted to do today was cover a basic topic. I've had a couple people recently ask me about Guardian builds in general, and I thought it would be best to just come in, take a look at one of the Guardians. In this case, I chose Athena, and go into the item builder with nothing there and build it through from scratch, talking about how you should progress Guardians in general. So this is not going to be specific to Athena. It's going to be a catch-all, hey, I want to start to learn Guardians. What should I do? So let's start with starter item. Really, you have two solid choices. Watcher's Gift is what I generally want to start with. It has a good mix of things. So you have health, protection, MP5, and you don't fall behind when your lane partners are mowing down minions, creeps, and enemy gods. So you're going to get that bonus on the passive. So let's start there. But the other alternative, I don't want to ignore that, is if you have a strong physical team, at least 3, but preferably 4, starting Mark of the Vanguard isn't bad at all. But like I said, I generally go this way. We would always then start into boots. Okay, a couple thoughts on boots. You have some flexibility here. If you find that while you're just learning Guardians, you're falling behind in experience and gold because your minion clear is not very good, Traveler's Boots is a very solid choice. Not only do you get the bonus movement speed, which helps you do lane rotations and get to cover multiple places as needed, but you get the passive of the 25 HP 5 while out of combat. So those are very nice. The icing on the cake is just when you damage an enemy god, you're going to earn an additional 30 gold, and you can read the passive. It's once per god within 90 seconds. So, you can hit 5 of the gods within that 90 seconds and get 150. But that's how that works. So I think that that's a solid choice. Nothing wrong with going with tanky boots. That's fine. And nothing wrong with getting your cooldown. You got to remember that Guardians are mainly about their crowd control and supporting the back line, the mages and hunters. So getting frequent use out of the crowd control rather than damage is always a solid choice. So any one of those 3, let's, in this instance, go ahead and take that. If you followed any of my other videos, you know that I really just go left to right, top to bottom on my A build. So I'm going to come over and grab a consumable. Since my videos are aimed at the Clash, Arena, Joust, and Siege player, you end up going back to Fountain more often, and this is very valuable buy. I am also a firm believer in wards in all modes, and I hit the R1 to move that up to 2, and I would go ahead and select that. And now we're going to go into the core build. The core build, doesn't matter which Guardian you are, if you're playing that kind of support role, you're going to come down here into the aura line, and you're going to be looking for things that help you and the rest of your team. Sovereignty is by far the best of the starting choices. Let's take a moment to look at that. Sovereignty is going to give you armor for yourself, physical protection for yourself and your allies. It's going to have an aura of effect. Right now I'm in still 4.10 because I'm on PlayStation 4, but this coming week we'll have 4.11, and the physical protection will increase from 30 to 40, and the aura will decrease from 30 to 15. So the person who's wearing it will get a total of 45 and physical protection, 200 health, and the rest of their team will get the 15 physical protection, plus they'll also get the HP 5, and you'll get the HP 5. So you got to think about lane monsters, jungle camps, and 3 of the 5 enemy god classes are physical, so that's the best all around. So we would go ahead and check that. Next, we're going to go into Gauntlet of Thebes, Again, this has a nerf coming up, so the health is going to reduce from 350 to 300. The HP 5 will remain, and the aura is going to decrease from 20 to 15. If you remember in the previous patches, you used to get a 400 health, so this is going through its second nerf, but still solid and still important to provide the protections to yourself and your team. Guardian's core abilities that do damage do pretty good damage. Don't necessarily have great scaling, so building power in and of themselves is not a requirement. You want the utility aspects of them. Finally, we're going to end it with the last aura item, which is Heart Ward right here. This is the magical version of Sovereignty. So instead of having physical protection, you're giving yourself and the rest of your team magical protection. You would have 65 magical protection when you wear it, plus 200 health, plus the 20 MP5. The rest of your team will have the 20 magical protection plus the 8 MP5. So that is the essential core of a Guardian build, and everything after that becomes a case-by-case basis, but I'm going to give some strong recommendations. I think it's absolutely fine to continue in the magical defense, and I think Spirit Robe is the best all-around protection. Value for dollar, you get physical protection, magical protection, cooldown reduction, crowd control reduction, and that wonderful passive that's going to reduce the damage that you take by 15% for 3 seconds whenever you're hit by hard crowd control effect. And that refreshes every 15 seconds. So if you're looking at your build, you'll see if this has procced or been activated, there'll be a little counter, 15, 14, 13, etc. So we'll go ahead and put that in. So now we're at 20% cooldown, right? Finally, you'll be at that stage when you sell your starter item. In general, don't sell your starter item until it's time to actually buy your 6th item. Keeping in mind that when you sell your starter item, which costs 800 gold, you're going to get 533 back. So keep that price in mind. And I'm just going to come right down to this line and look at other choices. You don't have to necessarily keep here in this line, but I think it's worthwhile to look. Emperor's Armor is fine if you find that you and your team are having to be on the defensive heel, right? And you're fighting to maintain towers against enemy pressure, or the reverse, right? Your team is trying to now push the final objectives to get the enemy tightened down. Emperor's Armor is going to help with that. So it does both. It improves the defensive capability of your towers when you're under them, and it decreases the damage output from the enemy, and it does that by changing the attack speed as you read. And again, it's also increasing your physical protection and health. I know I've mentioned a lot of times that health and armor have synergy. You don't want to just build one or the other. If the enemy has a lot of penetration, they're reducing the amount of effective protection that you have. And then there are items like Quinn Size or that do damage that's scaled based on the target's health. So there are ways around both avenues, which is why you want to have a mix. So I think that that's a fine item. Continuing on the tanky line, if you come over to defense health, I think it's fine to start to look at this tree, and these 3 items are all viable choices if you want to improve a little bit of damage. But what I like about this in particular is getting the mix of power, health, and crowd control reduction. The passive is just icing on the cake. I think it's solid to stack this with Spirit Robe. I think it's fine to build any of the other robes. If you want to add a slow effect, Gem of ISO is fine. If you have a healer in your party, this can add synergy. But even if you don't, keep in mind that this also applies to any abilities that different gods have, any potions that they take, any relics that deal with health and lifesteal. So that's solid. Furthermore, as I mentioned, any of these cloaks, I probably would not pick up Hide of the Urchin this late, but I think that Magi's Blessing is underrated. Even though it only has 15 protection, the fact that it also has 350 health, and that passive acts like a purification that you don't need to activate. So if you're lousy about activating your relics, this does it automatically for you whenever you get hit. And it's really obvious when it's available. You'll have a bubble around you, and when it's not, the bubble has popped and will automatically reappear 70 seconds after it's popped. So I think that that's a solid choice. We're going to come down and only pick one or two more because I don't want this to be a long video. I think Stone of Gaia is also very strong. And I'm going to give you one more team one. It's in the aura. And this item. This item brings a lot of synergy to your team that helps both offensively and defensively, right? So it's giving you magical power, it's giving you mana, it's giving you lifesteal, and it's giving you cooldown. The real value for you specifically is the cooldown. But look at the aura. It's also giving magical lifesteal of 12%, so all the other guardians and mages would get that 12%, and a magical power increase of 30%. Or if they're physical gods, they'll get a physical lifesteal of 10% and a physical power of 20% just by being around you. So I think that, again, cooldown helps keep your abilities able to be activated. So I think selling your starter item for any of these would be fine. I know I mentioned the other cloak. So if you were coming down here and you just wanted even more tankiness this way, but again, whether it's going to be a mix of physical and health, a split of physical, magical, and health with the passive health, MP5, HP5, and 2 great passives. If you want to give yourself more cooldown and power and lifesteal to all of your allies, regardless of whether they're magic or physical, or if you're dealing with an enemy team with a lot of penetration, this would help. So I think all of those would be solid choices to complete your build. So with that in mind, let's finally just skip over and talk about relics. I'm going to break this into 2 different ways, right? The first is going to be the team way, and I think that it's very viable to think about what are you bringing to your team. And so you have a couple different choices. Yes, meditation was nerfed, but the reality is your squishies are still squishy, and any ability for you to refresh both their health and their mana is greatly appreciated. And of course there's the base version, and then I just R2'd to see the upgraded version. You can see that this also adds additional MP5 and HP5 for additional healing over time. So you get the base plus the additional. So these are both worth picking up. I certainly would start with the base level. And the other relic that I think is a very solid go-to choice is Heavenly Wings. It's the move speed version. So think of this as a great relic when you're just learning relics. Because combined with this, if you activate these, so you get 1 free at first and 1 free at 12th, you could spend the 500 at any time to upgrade either or both. Part of the challenge of relics is, when do I use them? You know, I have this relic, but am I saving it too much? Similar to a lot of people's dilemma of when do I and when don't I cast my ultimate? Well, you've got to develop the habit of casting your relics. And the easiest way to do that is to have these 2 relics, because it becomes a pretty easy decision tree. Am I missing, 25, 30% of my health or mana? Maybe both. Are my allies? Well, if so, just pop meditation, man. Do yourself and the rest of your team the favor, have more lane sustain, be able to soak up some more golden XP by being in lane. So that's what meditation's for. Keep in mind that when you're defending your towers, phoenixes, titans, and or the reverse, pushing against them, your ability to keep your heavy damage dealers in that combat for even 2 or 3 extra hits can mean the difference between success and being pushed back as a team or getting wiped and then having that thing restore by the time you get back to it. Same with Heavenly Wings, right? There are times where you or your allies get caught out of position through enemy rotations, ganks, things like that. Maybe you over pursued and they popped a meditation, or they had a heal ability that came off cooldown, and suddenly they're going to be able to sustain through that. Now you've got to get out of town quick. Well, Heavenly Wings helps you do that. And again, it's not only good for you, but it's good for everybody around you. And the reverse. How many times have you or your team been damaging somebody and they just barely get away? If you have Heavenly Wings, you cast it, it's very obvious. You guys start to sparkle. You have that boost in speed. You can chase the enemy down and confirm the kill. So I think that those are the two starting choices. You want some more advanced choices? I'll give you 4 more. I think that it's always solid for everybody to learn Purification Beads and Aegeus. Cleanses crowd control, makes you immune to damage, but you're silenced. You can't use any spells or abilities. You can't even basic attack or take a potion or cast another relic. You can run. But that can be the difference between life and death. Think Kuka's ultimate just about to hit you, etc. So that'll mitigate that. And I'll give you 2 more choices that are team built. Belt of Frenzy, going to help you guys push objectives, whether it's a big monster or a Tower of Phoenix Titan type situation. So I think that that's fine. And the opposite is Magic Shell. Give you and your allied team a boost in your physical and magical protections for 5 seconds and reduce damage. And the upgraded version increases the amount of protection from 30 to 45 and the damage reduction from 5 to 10. So both very strong for staying in a team fight that has everybody popping, pretty much their whole kit. So there you go. There is a generic, hey, I want to be a supporting guardian. How should I go about it? I'll close this video with one final thought. You can run any warrior the same way, and it comes very close to how solo lane runs in Conquest. Yes, there are individual item differences, but the idea of solo lane is 95% of the time you have 4 or 5 pure defense items and boots. Trusting on your regular abilities and your auto attacks to do the damage portion. Your goal as a warrior is to dive the back line and try to kill the squishies, the mages and the hunters, and they're going to try and stop you, and the enemy guardian is going to try and stop you, right? The guardian is the reverse, right? They're trying to stay with the back line and provide peel by physically putting themselves in between you or the diving person and their ally, or using their crowd control to pull them off through taunts, lockdown, slows, etc. So for that reason, this idea of being tanky and being able to survive some of that burst and relying on the core abilities to do what they need to do work in both instances. So if you found any of this information useful, please click the like. If you haven't already subscribed, I would love it if you would do so. Clicking the bell does me a great favor. It notifies you whenever I post new content. I am responding to comments and requests for new content if you are a subscriber. Thank you very much for watching. This is Hawkissimo signing out.